professionals and company supervisors. And we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. And I want to introduce you to my amazing friend and partner in this venture, Paulette Rigo, a certified divorce coach. She is a certified divorce specialist, a credentialed mediator, and the director of coaching and management here at Divorce Right. And together, we tackle the biggest disruptor in your company, and that is divorce. As a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we'll post a link at the end of this broadcast so that you can grab those. And today we're going to be talking about how it's kind of a heavy topic, but yet we have a solution, how your employees can actually finance their divorce costs. You know, we're in divorce month. January is divorce month. And some employees are struggling simply because of their inability to pay for their divorce, which is why we have invited Nicole Noonan of New Chapter Capital to our LinkedIn Live today and to discuss the matters facing your employees with the challenges of affording a divorce. So let me tell you a little bit about Nicole. Nicole Noonan, ESQ, is the CEO of New Chapter Capital and specializes in divorce funding. She is a nationally recognized divorce expert and pioneer in divorce funding, crowned the fairy godmother of divorce by the New York Post, recognized by New York Magazine as New York's women's leader in law. She has been on Good Morning America, Bloomberg TV, WPIX, France 2, and Law News with Dan Abrams. She has been featured in the Huffington Post's Women in Business, American Banker, The Economist, Forbes magazine, Fortune magazine, and the New York Times. Nicole practiced with a number of top-rated divorce law firms throughout her career. She was instrumental in the litigation of a large number of complex family law cases involving both financial and custody disputes, including some of the leading reported cases in these areas. Nicole holds a BA from Boston College and a JD from Seton Hall University School of Law. She sits on the Seton Hall University Stillman School of Business Leadership Council, and additionally, she is a certified New York mediator. Welcome, Nicole. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Super. I'm going to turn it over to Paulette to get us started.
Well, Nicole, I'm so glad you're here because this is a big problem, right? You can finance a car, you can finance a boat, a house, a condo, a business. I could probably list a lot more things that you can find legitimate bank or lending options for, right? I mean, we don't just wake up one day and be able to afford all of the necessities of life. But when it comes down to divorce, there really isn't an option, right? I mean, it's a big problem. And I love your brainchild of helping people with the solution, right? And I also see a lot of the mistakes that people make. Borrowing money from a family member. Don't mean to talk badly about family members, everyone. Don't get upset. But, you know, it's dangerous territory that you could fall into. And sometimes old people will put it on a credit card, which I don't know what's worse, credit card, family credit card, and you know, or use their 401k or many other types of financial, or, you know, saving for it and planning, which is always wise. But there aren't a lot of options, right? So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for enlightening us because we're always looking for solutions. So what was the inspiration behind your business initially, and how can businesses help employers learn about this option?
Sure. So I, as you mentioned, practiced matrimonial law before doing this and saw firsthand a real need for my clients for another option. You mentioned friends or family to go to. It's very hard to have a very expensive wedding and then 5-10 years later ask mom and dad, hey, can I have $50,000 for my divorce?
Isn't that true?
And it also doesn't make for a really tight friendship when you're asking to borrow money for a divorce.
Right.
Certainly credit cards are an option, but it's not always an option for people that don't have great credit history, can't make the monthly payments. And it's also very difficult to get $50,000 out right away for a divorce. So being a practicing attorney and hearing about this idea in the UK and Australia, I thought, wow, why aren't we doing this in the US? And that's what I ended up doing. An Australian company was coming to the US to start funding, and I'm like, this is brilliant. So we've been growing ever since. And now New Chapter Capital is in all 50 states. We're available. And we're really, my biggest hurdle is for people to know about us. So you mentioned for certainly an employer to let their employees know, hey, perhaps this will take some of the stress out of a very stressful situation. And the money that is advanced to the clients is not just used for legal fees. It's not just used for expert costs, which they may need, but also for interim living expenses. Because right now, post-COVID, courts are super backed up, and it's really hard to get in there and make those interim counsel fees or even living expenses motions. So, yeah, that's how I got my start.
And then what is the typical process of this? I'm curious because I know that's a question I'm going to get asked a lot.
Sure. So we try to make it as simple as possible. Happy to speak with the client, the employee, answer any questions, myself, my associates at New Chapter Capital. But we also need to speak with the attorney. So we will send an application to the law firm. The law firm fills it out with the client's assistance. We then send it to underwriting. Our underwriters make a determination. We try to do it within 3 business days because time is of the essence. Whole process can be done in as little as 2 weeks. And we really try to keep it as streamlined as possible and make it as easy as possible for the clients.
And that's key to them because they're already living in a constant state of unending stress. And the last thing they want to hear is, oh, you've got to fill out 32 pages worth of, I don't know why I said 32, but maybe just because I hang around with mortgage people a lot. But, the paperwork is endless and it's very stressful. So simplicity is key to people feeling less burdened by the documentation, right? And they hear documentation over and over and over during divorce. So, but I'm sure it's an educational process too, because this is a relative in my world, and Vicki's, I'm thrilled to learn about this. So, but who is the typical client for this business? Who do you find comes to you the most often? Is there a portrait or a scenario or a demographic, or does it reach across all categories?
There's this preconceived notion that it's for the stay-at-home moms that didn't work, gave up their career to raise the children, comes time to divorce, and they don't have any money to fund their litigation costs. Certainly, those are our clients, but it's also males that may have been the stay-at-home dads, but also may not have a liquidity event. We've actually funded both sides of the case, both husband and wife, where all the assets are tied up and they're illiquid. So it's giving them the availability to have that liquidity until they have liquidity at their or a PD or their retirement account. But for now, it gives them the availability to have that money to live on, to have their attorneys represent them, and also their experts. So it really ranges the gamut of female, high net worth. We've funded in millions, and we funded, something around 20,000. So it's not just for high net worth individuals, and it's also for not just people that do not have a complex case, that have a really simple case. So we sort of go throughout the range of different cases.
So it could be for a smaller amount of money, right? We're not saying they need $5 million or something. Right. It could be a small amount of money. Like, I love the fact that it isn't just for legal fees too, that it could be that bridge of living expenses. And you mentioned such a good point about liquidity. Many people have assets, but they're in real estate or they're tied up in investments or stocks or a pension or 401k or right, there's so many other things. So they can't just run to an ATM and say, what would you like, and you put in the net number and boom,
If
here's your
only it was that easy, right?
like a lot of people do have assets, but they're tied up. And if they were to sell, it would also complicate the divorce, because many times in divorce, it's status quo where you have a joint credit card or, dissipation of marital assets. And, there's a lot of twists and turns when it comes to being able to access marital assets when you're litigating in particular. So, I'm glad you brought up the liquidity issue. So, what is divorce funding? Because and the myths surrounding it, that employees might believe. I'm learning. So, do you have any myth busters or things that we need to really be aware of for?
I think, we touched upon that there, it's for the ultra high net worth individuals. It's not necessarily for that. It's only for women. It's not necessarily for that either. We funded certainly same sex marriages. We funded, like I said, both sides of husband and wife, both sides of the marriage. So there's certainly something there. That it's very expensive, that you have to make payments. No payments are needed until you get to settlement. So there are a number of myths out there when it comes to divorce funding. Also, about the spouse, that the spouse has to sign off on it. Unlike, a regular mortgage where you'd have to have both husband and wife, and husband may not be really thrilled with signing off on a mortgage, so the wife can go out and retain a great attorney, a great forensic accountant, and find those hidden assets. Unlike that, it only has to be signed off by one party. So,
well, I'm going to have a lot of clients for you, Nicole.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the nitty gritty with the application process. I know you touched on it, but do they just go to the website? Do they need to speak to a consultant, or what is if I went, hi, I want to speak to somebody at New Chapter Capital, they answer the phone, or is it all done online? What is the process like?
Yeah, as you ladies know, no two cases are the same. So we certainly have clients that want to know firsthand every little detail of what divorce funding is, and we're happy to, myself, my associates, will answer any calls. There's nothing we haven't seen in terms of divorces, doing this for over a decade, and me for practicing before that. So certainly there's nothing to be ashamed of. Then there are other clients that really don't want to, want to keep a very hands off on this. As I mentioned before, the application itself does need to be filled out by the law firm, by an attorney. So we will eventually need to send that application to the attorney. We do have clients that actually just email us, see their attorney, and we'll connect that way, kind of keeping them out of the fray if they just want to, investigate this through their attorney and see if they're actually going to be approved, and then move forward with it. There's no actual fee on any application unless they move forward with the funding. So we do have clients that just inquire. We are happy to talk with them, 15-minute consultation fee. We can't give legal advice because we're not representing them in a legal capacity, but certainly we can give them divorce funding information.
Okay.
Nicole, can I ask you a question? Are these secured loans in any way?
Nope, they're unsecured cash advances against the settlement. So if a client, gets less than what we have approved for, that's really our bad and on our underwriting. And that's why, we have really great underwriters to make sure that we're approving for a reasonable amount, nothing in excess. But certainly it is an unsecured cash advance against the client's settlement.
So a quick question, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but what is the typical amount that you finance?
Our sweet spot, we usually say between 100 to 300,000. But like I said, we funded 20,000. We funded, people you'd read about in the newspaper in the millions. So it's sort of the secret. Someone had said it was the secret someone writes on a cocktail napkin at a party. Look up New Chapter Capital. And certainly we've heard people that actually have gotten our name for a friend of a friend as a very secret, but it's their secret weapon, basically.
So this, when you talk about that, your sweet spot being 100,000 to 300,000, we are talking that upper tier divorce that is going to go is going to go to trial, typically, correct?
Not necessarily, but yes, typically the divorces that come our way are, yes, absolutely.
Right. So somebody that needs $1,500, this is probably not an answer for them, or would you say it could be?
Well, what I always say, we get calls from people that are short-term marriages, they have no assets, they have no children. Honestly, it doesn't make sense for them to throw good money after bad. We don't want it. I don't want to see that personally. Certainly, if they could sit down with their soon-to-be ex-spouse, go, these are my non-negotiables, this is your non-negotiables, and hash it out as much as possible. And go to a mediator, which I am a mediator, so I totally believe in mediation. It's not something, don't throw good money after bad. Don't put an attorney's children through college, put your own children through college. That's the most important. That's really paramount. So
Amen to that. That's one of the things that we are so desperately trying to get that word out about other ways that you can end a marriage, because it doesn't have to go that round, right? We don't have to be. I mean, yes, there are the $100,000 to $300,000 divorces. Absolutely, we've all worked with many of them, but for those people that are not at that financial level, what could they expect to pay for your fees, so that we can be very transparent, and what would the end cost to them be on, say, a $25,000 loan? Like, what would that cost them?
So for 25,000, we have an application fee of $750. We do have a monthly fee with a 6-month minimum. And what we do try to do is make it akin to a credit card, basically, our fee. But everything's written out, spelled out on the documentation. There's no variables. They know if it takes 6 months, this is what I'm going to have to pay. If it takes, God forbid, 6 years, this is what I will have to pay. Certainly, it behooves them to try to finalize something sooner than later, but that's just in general. I should say this: nothing needs to be paid until they get to settlement. Everything is rolled in. The only thing that we do not make an advance for is we do require all our clients to review the documents with independent legal counsel. So whatever state they're coming from, it does not need to be a matrimonial attorney. It cannot be their divorce attorney, but anyone who's practicing in that state to review. That way they can ask any questions. Certainly they can ask questions of me, they can ask questions of their attorney, but they're able to independently ask questions without anyone who's somehow benefiting from it. So that's the only thing.
So they would have to get outside counsel outside of their family law attorney that's representing them in this matter.
Right. Exactly. And we've worked with attorneys, throughout the country that we can refer them to. Also, their attorneys can refer them to, because some people just don't know any other attorneys. We'll give them a list of people to go, not just one, but people to go to review the.
Absolutely. I get that. So, for our HR listeners, our company supervisors, what can their employees do right now to prepare to, here it is, January 2023, and this is divorce month. For employers that are listening to this is the month that, a lot of people are considering starting over again, right? A New Year's resolution. All the holidays are behind them. There's so many reasons why January is the month that people tend to do this. So what can their employees do right now to prepare to fund their case?
So, like a Girl Scout, be prepared, collect that information. So if you are thinking about filing, thinking about, exploring the possibility, certainly knowledge is power. So get those birth certificates of your children, marriage certificates, any tax returns that you may not have copies of. Make sure you have bank accounts, passwords. Change your passwords on your I just had a password issue getting into my LinkedIn myself. Make sure you know your passwords, and perhaps even want to change your password, certainly on your phone if you're calling up looking for attorneys, making appointments, and you don't want to let your spouse know. I think that it's important to have that done as well. Touching upon social media, don't change your Facebook page to say it's complicated after a 25-year marriage. I mean, that's obviously going to cause some issues, red flags, not just personally, but certainly professionally, I think could also cause issues. So not a smart move to do that. Certainly, if you want to, there's help out there, not just divorce attorneys, but therapists you can speak to. If you're looking to see if funding is an option, certainly New Chapter Capital is somewhere you can call. But be prepared, take your time. Rome was not built in a day. So make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you decide to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to move out. Make sure you have something, lined up. Or if you're staying, make sure you stay and have everything, sort of settled and done. But certainly this is not a one and done sort of thing. You will have to, especially if you're a co-parent, you will have to co-parent with this person for the rest of their lives, even above 18. There are marriages, grandkids. So make sure that, you try to keep it as cordial as possible, if possible.
If it's at all possible. And you know what, and that's something that we love to help here. We at Divorce Right, we understand, just everybody understand, we don't advocate for divorce. We just advocate for divorce done right. And that's exactly what you're saying, making those wise decisions even about how to pay for their divorce. And I think that this gives them an option that they didn't know that they had before. And it's something, so if they enter into this agreement with you, they decide they need to do the financing. Does that become then a part of disclosure in the divorce? Is there, does that go into any sort of documentation?
It depends. I mean, we've had clients where they notify the other side right away. We've had cases where, it's in mediation. They may not know until the very end, where they're writing a settlement agreement and, husband has to pay, $30,000 to New Chapter Capital for legal fees because legal fees have already been advanced. It just depends. No two cases are the same. So.
Interesting. Any tips that you can give to an employer that may have an employee in their office really having what my very Southern mother used to call having a come apart when they are they just don't know which way to turn, what to do, how to get started? What would you advise? And what I love about this is that you're a family law attorney too. Also, you do both, right? What advice could you give to employers on how to help their employee when they're trying to figure this all out?
Don't sweep it under the rug. I mean, certainly it's a big life event. They say divorce is like a death. So from employers themselves, I would say, it is a big deal. But just let them know that help is available. Certainly, contact Divorce Right, contact New Chapter Capital if they need funding, but to let them know that, help is there. I would also say, make sure they mention just to be smart about keeping everything documented in terms of knowing, like I mentioned before, bank accounts, because you never know when someone's trying to find hidden assets are often something we see where all of a sudden someone has pulled up, money out of a bank account and they didn't even know that it was there to begin with. So just make sure that your employees know, and also know what their retirement accounts are. I mean, that they're aware of what's available to them, and to look at the other side and see what their spouse's retirement account, maybe bear mention of that. That might be helpful for your employees.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I'm going to put in our chat right here why don't you give me your contact information and website so I can put that in the chat?
Sure. So it's www.new chapter, CHAPTER, capital CAPITAL.com. And then our phone number, if anyone wants to reach out, is 212-404-7807.
7807.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I want employers to know that, just because an employee is done, right, their final papers have been received, doesn't mean that the effects of the divorce miraculously vanish. There can be a period of time, just like a death, where it could be months for some people, it could be days or weeks, which is rare, but it could be months or even a year or more, where the trickle down effect of the experience does kind of take some time to peel away and exfoliate from the experience. So it does take a bit of patience, and the more they feel that they're doing a good job and that they were persevered and they got through it with flying colors and they did well. Not that they need to hear that on a daily basis, but just as an employer's awareness that it does take a little bit of time. I've never known anyone that just walks out of court with a piece of paper and says, "Yay, I'm done." And I mean, they may say that right away, but don't be surprised if there's this a little bit of an after effect. And
Boomerang effect. Yeah.
yeah. January is divorce month, but it's also today, the day that Mercury is no longer retrograde. And Saturday is a new moon. New moons mean new beginnings, and Sunday is Chinese New Year. So we've got a lot of new, fresh starts with Chinese New Year, our New Year, new moon, and no longer retrograde for those of you that are woo-woo like I am. So it's really important that,
Does this mean my phone will work now?
Yes, all of your technological weird things should hopefully, as of tomorrow, go away. So there's something about fresh starts coming along.
Well, thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. This is very informative, and I think it's a very practical solution for those that are wondering how in the heck they're going to do this. So thank you so much for being here. We will have information on New Chapter Capital available to you. Reach out to us if there is someone in your company that is going through this, or you want to learn more and become aware of some of the signs of divorce before it happens, so you can catch this early and support your employee before the wheels come off the bus, please reach out to us. We're here. We love to help and support and serve those that are going through it. I hope that you all will join us again next week as we bring yet another important topic around the divorce process and employees going through it. Thank you, Nicole, for being here. My friend Paulette, thank you so much for doing this with me again today. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.